allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, all of you here. We appreciate you coming and sharing. We'll call this meeting of the Planning Commission on October the 10th, 2024. To order, please. Have commissioners had a chance to read the minutes? Are there any corrections, questions? I'll entertain a motion to accept them. It's been moved to accept the minutes as written. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved to second. We accept the minutes as stated as written and passed. Further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
I have to abstain because I wasn't a member of the planning commission.
Number 3 is the reports from our board of commissioners. Mr. Mayor, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Our Board of Commissioners met last on September the 17th. I will note for the Planning Commission that this is the first session of our new commission. Every 2 years we refresh ourselves and following the election in August, and so we welcome new commissioners. We welcomed Pat Jenkins onto the commission, and also welcome Becky Hedrick for another term on the commission. At the meeting on the 17th, we did have election of officers. I was re-elected as the mayor. Kelsey Satterfield will serve as the vice mayor. Randy Martin, commissioner of streets and maintenance. Kelsey Satterfield, commissioner of parks and recreation. And I will continue to serve as commissioner of police. I think that's all on that. Because the Planning Commission has 7 members, 2 of which are Board of Commission representatives, as the mayor and 1 more, the Board of Commissioners elected Pat Jenkins to serve as another member on the Planning Commission. So that's why we have Mr. Jenkins here tonight. So congratulations to Mr. Jenkins. Let's see, what else did we do? We had a beer board meeting, probably not so much of interest. We had a building and codes report provided by Building Inspector Doug Blair. He said that there were no new building permits, been 4 certificates of occupancy, and we also reported that the building inspector's office had passed an audit by the state fire marshal's office, and also indicated that Mr. Blair would have a grading driveway permit ordinance ready for approval at the October Planning Commission. Let's see, is that on our agenda for tonight?
I'm still working on it.
Okay, that one's still under some work, so we'll have to make sure we have that on a future agenda. Let's see, we also reviewed our budget, discussed a number of other items. We talked about different festivals that have happened in town. We got a report from maintenance. Jason Jones reported that the city had received a call about the swinging bridge up near the Abbey, Dark Island. And there are some serious issues with the bridge. It's kind of coming out of its moorings there. And so we are in the process of looking into that. And I believe at this time we have the swinging bridge closed. Is that right, City Manager? What's the status?
No, we're just having caution.
Caution on there. So I think over time the moorings have really started to give way. So we're going to have to look into that immediately. And I think we also have another one that we're looking into, and that's the platform at the Special People's Park. We've got 2 really important resources city that needed some attention. So that was brought to the attention of the Board of Commissioners by the Maintenance Department, and we do have work going on to look into that. Let's see what else we have that would be of interest to the Planning Commission. We had an update from the Community Plan Advisory Committee. We'll have an update tonight. I think Christina Delaney will give an update tonight. Christina, nice to see you tonight. And then, let's see, we had public input, which I think was primarily about fairs. And we looked at some additional special event applications, and I think that was primarily, we talked a lot about fairs. And that's your update from the last Board of Commissioners meeting. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor, on our swinging bridge, the footbridge, in recesses of my mind, we had an agreement with Blount County, but we never had it in writing. It was all a verbal agreement on the maintenance of that on one side or the other. Has that been addressed as far as the standards are concerned?
Well, that's part of what we're looking into. We went back and searched historical record and most of the memories, and the recollection was that there was a need for repairs at one point on the swinging bridge, and Blount County came in and did that.
Right.
And with the understanding that we would keep it up after that. There has not been anything memorialized, but we are working with the county on different aspects, not only the swinging bridge on the upper end, but on the lower end as well, in terms of maintenance, and some of the murals that are on those things. So we have some, I think what I would just describe as handshake understanding with the county about the maintenance on some of those things. We're going to try to identify that and get that documented and more memorialized in a more regular way, so that we know what we're responsible for and what the county's responsible for. With respect to the swinging bridge up at Dark Island, the other side of that, I believe, is on private property. And so that represents another unique point on that. So, Commissioner Jenkins?
I can give you some information about that. Both sides of the swinging bridge are on private property. The property owner on the Townsend side, on his deed, has an easement that lets people go from the street onto that bridge. The other side, there's a implied easement that has lasted for 75 years that allows people to get from whatever that road is called, Cameron Road, onto that bridge, in spite of what the property owner thinks.
Okay.
But both sides of it are on private property.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jenkins. So, again, that's a really nice thing. It's nice for our residents, good for our visitors, but we need to understand, I think, a lot of things about it. We need to make sure that we understand, what the responsibilities are of the respective parties, and then we can proceed with, making sure that we make repairs and have access to those things. I'd be really sad if things, were not able to be accessed, but I'd be even more sad if somebody got hurt. So we have to take those precautions. I've not heard so many people reaching out as I have about that platform down at the specialty park. So there's a lot of people that really use that, and I know Parks and Rec Committee is working mightily on that. So.
Thank you. Any other questions you'd like to ask, Mayor? Okay. Gayla, do we have any public comments signed up?
Mr. Vice Chair, if I could, on the subject of public comments, I'd like the Planning Commission to look at the way we do our public comment period. I've had some citizens point out to me that other municipalities have different ways that they address public comments during the Planning Commission. And so I'd like it if we would take a look at that and see if there's any best practices from the county or mayor of Alcoa in terms of how we organize our public comments and allow people to comment on the different things. I know now the intention is that people would provide public comments on different things that are on the agenda. But I know that some municipalities sort of do them one by one, and we've had people bring to our attention that, there's not an opportunity. Like at City Council, we have 2 opportunities for public comments. But, I wonder if the Planning Commission could look into that and maybe provide some recommendations to see if there's a way that we could look at a different way to do our public comment.
Well, it might be that we've got another workshop that we're discussing to put that on as a potential topic. And bring that up.
Maybe we can do some research and see what the best practices are.
Yes.
Okay. If we could capture that for the minutes, that would be really helpful.
All right. Under new business, section A is the B3 rezoning for the Tally Ho Inn property by Mr. Stewart. Mr. Beck? Do we have a yes? Thank you, sir.
Good evening. As mentioned, my name is Greg Stewart. I believe I met most of you, all but the new member of the council last month. As you will recall, we are under contract to purchase parcel 097071, which is a 5.22 acre parcel here in Townsend that sits between the Tally Ho Inn and the Great Smoky Mountains Heritage Shrine. That is an undeveloped piece of land currently, and we are here to request a zoning change from B1 to B3 that would take effect when we acquire the property. We believe that the change is both an appropriate use given the other adjacent uses there, and that the property itself is suitable for an RV park. I'm happy to go through these materials again. If you would like me to, sort of expedite this, I can do that as well, but for the new council member, I can go through it if you like. Page 1 of this handout just gives you a better look at which parcel exactly we're talking about. As you'll see, again, it's bordered by the Tally Ho on one side, the Heritage Center on the other, and the Sundown RV Resort in the back. As you know, this parcel is currently zoned B1. That is the Tourism Business District, but we would like to request that that is zoned to B3. And the purpose of making that request is so that we can pursue an upscale RV resort project there. And the plan would be that if we complete the acquisition of this property, we would also acquire the Tally Ho Inn and integrate those 2 projects together. You may be wondering, again, why we need that change from B1 to B3. And the reason is really simple, is that B1 does not allow for RV campground use currently, even though those are permitted by the city, inside city limits. And even though that B1 doesn't include RV, the stated purpose per the latest ordinances that you have published is that B1 zones, and I quote, are intended to encourage activities that support tourism. Our upscale RV resorts, especially those that are part of an existing hotel, should be very consistent with that intent and that goal. And we think that making this change from B1 to B3 is not necessarily a departure from the intent, but more of a technicality to make sure that we're in compliance with the latest ordinances you all have. Just to walk you through a little bit more about why we think that this makes sense from the property standpoint. Page 2, you'll just see the dimensions of the parcel, and then page 3 has the current zoning map. And as mentioned, you'll see that end of Townsend is all in the commercial B1 zone. And so again, that sort of supports our thought that this would not be a major departure.
Can I ask you a question before you go too far? Did you say you are acquiring the Tally Ho Inn, or you might?
We are evaluating that acquisition if this zoning change is
So it's a
Yeah, but the ultimate plan that those, we believe those two projects go together, given their that they are continuous parcels and very different but very, very related uses.
Okay, thank you.
Just turning to page 4 and 5, which are the pictures, you can see that this 5.22 acre parcel is very open. It's flat and it has really good visibility from the highway. It's located right off the parkway, which makes it suitable to accommodate the traffic. It's not a small road. It's not in the curvy part of the parkway. And again, it has visibility from all directions, enhancing the safety. And again, you can kind of see there that there are existing driveways which would be redesigned, but it gives ample space for ingress and egress, both for the traffic, but as well as for temporary staging and parking during check-in. A couple of other points. One is that the height of that property is about 15 feet higher than the parkway itself, and 225 feet back from the road. So that gives us really good and easy ability to sort of beautify and camouflage the RV sites themselves. So from the outside, we're able to keep that consistent with how it looks, the surrounding area today. And then third, the one thing that we want to point out is that green buffer between the parcel and the Heritage Center, and it's definitely our plan to maintain that for the same reasons. And then just keep turning those pages. I think the next page of importance is page 7. We are in the very, very early stages of planning, but just to give you a sense of what this might look like, and I want to emphasize that it's a might, we have put together just an illustrative site plan. And again, we're not here for a site plan permanent request. If we're here for the zoning change request, that would be something we come back for once we acquire the property and have done our engineering and design. But we have reviewed the ordinances or started reviewing those, are aware of the requirements, so it's definitely our plans to comply with them. And our final site numbers in terms of how many RVs we can fit there would depend on the measurements that are drawn. But we do believe it would be relative to the other RV resorts in the area a lower density per acre than some of them today. As you can see, if you turn to the next page, is just a simple example of what a path would look like itself. One thing to note is the ordinances, you're familiar with this, but they require 10 feet between each one. That's going to give a lot of privacy and space. They are helping to keep that density low, which is our goals. We want this to be an upscale space with amenities for the folks who are coming in. Obviously, utilities would be paramount, but that's sort of consistent with our plan. And then lastly, I'll just say that, as you all know, there's a few important facts here to consider. As we mentioned, that campgrounds are and have been a very important feature of Townsend for years in its outdoor recreational nature and are permitted here in the city. And in fact, as you know, there are 7 campgrounds around this parcel, if you include the 2 on the other side of the river. And so again, we think that the RVUs, not only the B1 to the B3, but the RV resort itself would not be out of context or character. They would support the existing outdoor activities like the mountain biking, road biking, the activities at the Heritage Center, and then the hiking and tubing. As we discussed, the visibility, it's very important for us to make this attractive to the community and for those passing by. And importantly, this change to B1 to B3 would not have an adverse effect on any R1 or R2 zones or the quantity of those available. And then lastly, we fully expect that the overall project would lead to increased tax revenues and absolutely more job opportunities for the area. And I'll just say, we are very excited about this project and about continuing the legacy of the family that has run this property for years here in the community. We come from a small mountain community ourselves that is not very dissimilar to Townsend. So we fully understand what your concerns are, what your goals for the area are for the next 10, 20, 50 years. And we believe that we have our additional plans and what we would do going forward would address those, and that we can help make sure that this upper end of Townsend really is, it makes it the premier outdoor destination of the Smokies. And lastly, we just ask that you consider an approval to make this change that would go into effect when we close on the property. So that is our ask for you all here tonight, that you take action on that. And we appreciate your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can I ask you a couple questions? First of all, what's your name?
I'm Brett.
Brett.
Brett Stewart, yes.
Brett Stewart. Brett, are you the actual, gonna be the actual owner of the property? Or
Yes,
are you
I will be one of,
representing-
I will be one of the owners and operating.
Okay. And is this truly a campground, or is this a cabin development?
No, this would be an RV resort, shorter term, not long term, upscale, high end, because of the way the ordinances are designed, it actually works really well with what we would have done anyways, which is to bring in amenities and both for the individual pads itself, but the actual property. So things that we know are important to those who are looking for an active RV lifestyle. So if they're coming up, spending a night or 2, 3, 4, the pads are comfortable with the utilities. They've got space. They're not packed on top of each other. There are public amenities there, and the landscaping and everything is consistent with the nature that they're coming to enjoy.
And one other question, are you the current owner of the property, or do you have an option to buy the property?
No, we are not. So we are under contract to buy this, and so that's why this request to change from B1 to B3 would be conditional, and that it would only go into effect when we close on the property.
That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Stewart?
I should thank you for giving us the opportunity to have a workshop, which we had following the last planning commission meeting. I think it was a very good opportunity for the planning commission to sit with the city commission and to talk about issues related to development and development in this area of town. And while we don't have anything that is confirmed or codified in our regulations concerning what would be appropriate for this part of town, except the current zoning ordinance, the change which you have requested seems, based on that conversation, to be sort of in order in the manner of how the city council, who has the final word, would like to see the town develop for the future. So that's just my interpretation of what was said at that meeting, and maybe others on the commission here who will have add to that. But B3, since we have now had that discussion, starts to seem a little bit more appropriate. Plus, at that last meeting, we didn't have prior information concerning what your project was entailing exactly, and not, though you went over the details, we like to have that kind of information first to be able to consider it ahead of time with quiet time before we come in. So, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to study that.
Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to maybe just clarify for folks exactly what the process is, as I understand it. I'll describe it and you tell me if I don't get it right. So what we're entertaining now is an opportunity to change the zoning on this parcel from B1 to B3. And actually, the people that do that are the Board of Commissioners. And so I'm looking now at our Chapter 10 on how you amend the zoning code. It says the Board of Commissioners may amend any of the provisions of this code, including the zoning map, regulations, boundary, and districts. So if there's a recommendation by the Planning Commission, it would still go to the Board of Commissioners. Actually, the Board of Commissioners that has to make this decision.
Yes.
No such amendment shall become effective unless the same be first submitted to and approved by the planning commission. So that's why we're here tonight, looking at this, because it generally is a recommendation from the planning commission that goes to the board of commissioners. But the planning commission doesn't have to make a recommendation on it. So it can potentially move forward to the board of commissioners without a recommendation to the by the planning commission, as I read this here. And then also, I see in here, hearing on amendment notice, before enacting any amendment to the zoning code, the board of commissioners shall hold a public hearing, at least 15 days notice of the time and place shall be published in the newspaper and general circulation. So my point here is that we're discussing a recommendation to the board of commissioners. Board of commissioners are actually the ones that would change the zoning. Takes 2 readings. Okay, so it would take 2 readings, and we would probably post it up so that people could know where it is. I see in a lot of communities, they put a sign up here, public hearing. Okay, I'm clear on the process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, you're exactly right. That's our proposal tonight, is to propose it to the city council as a recommendation from the planning commission.
I've got a few more questions, but I see
I
Mr.
do
Jenkins
too.
wants to jump in.
As you all know, I'm a spec guy, so I read what we have written for B3, and it says, a zoning request by an applicant to rezone to this district represents a unilateral agreement between the legislative body and the property owner of the specific proposed use that will establish following a rezoning. This gentleman's not the property owner, so it seems like we got a,
But there's not a problem right here. He said he didn't want it to be taken effect until he is the property owner.
but he has to be the property owner to request it.
I was going to ask about this too. So you're not the property owner yet, but you're under contract. Is this supported by the property owner? Property owner?
Yes.
I see we might have a property owner.
Yes, it is supported by the property owner.
Okay.
The owner who has owned the dang property for 180-some years now, okay?
It's clear. I just want to make sure that we're clear. And I appreciate that, Mr. Talley, for clarifying this. So we want to try to make sure that we do it properly, and I wouldn't want to do something that didn't have the support of the property owner. And so I think it's pretty clear.
So this would be conditional on the sale. If the sale doesn't go, it goes back to B1.
City.
Clear this up. The simple fact of the matter is that it will not change until the sale happens.
Right.
So we shouldn't concentrate on the fact that,
I understand that. I just want to make it clear what happens to the public. If the sale doesn't happen, it stays B1.
yes,
Okay? Just want to make that clear to all these people.
It's important, we don't do this very often, so thank you for your patience, and it's important that everybody sort of understands how it happens. I think that's why we're asking these questions. Mr. Talley, that's why we're asking the questions, just to make sure that we're following our process. So.
Well, I can understand a process like this, but if, trying to put it delicately as I possibly can, we are currently under a contract for the potential buyers to do a due diligence. And I have talked to a couple attorneys now about what the due diligence process involves and whether or not this gentleman could back out, because you all do not allow a change of use. Yes, he could back out. And we've been over 2 years. We've been over 2 years now, and this process in itself has further delayed it. And so, yes, we very much appreciate you all recommending this to your next higher authority.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Akeem?
yeah, you have a question?
We're just considering this 5.3 acres for rezoning, and if we consider any other part of any sort of deal being made, we're dancing dangerously close to contract zoning, are we not?
No, we're simply, the owners have said they want to sell it. They want to have it rezoned if the sale goes through. Full stop. That's it. The Plan Commission is going to recommend that it be rezoned, and the city commissioners are going to determine if they should change the language in the ordinance to abide with their recommendation. So the main thing that the city commissioners are doing are changing the instrument that allows for your recommendation. I hope you guys are clear. So the city commissioners are not going to be acting as planners. You are the ones acting as planning commissioners to recommend the use. And all they are is determining that we accept the recommendation, and our effort is to change the language in the ordinance to reflect that recommendation or not.
That's all we can do.
Yes.
Let me point out one more thing. I know I've read a bunch of stuff from the city charter and new zoning stuff and all this. And I can understand in a way when people come in here with a big pile of money and they want to buy something and they want to make big changes that you all are careful as you possibly can be. But I have met this, the group who's involved with this, and my family went through probably half a dozen realtors. Many of them said, oh, we'll put your property, we'll put it on a national deal, and we'll get, excuse me, but we'll get some Asian corporation to come in here and buy this thing in a New York setting. He said no. I don't mean to be nice or bigoted toward Asians, but I do happen to know that the hotel motel business itself is largely on a national basis regulated by people from outside, from people from outside the local communities. But we insisted that our realtor focus on people who were like the group that we have now entered into a contract with, because we think that they will be an attribute to the community. We think they will be an attribute to the community. One of the gentlemen is in fact on the Planning Commission of Highlands, North Carolina, a small place. It's very similar to Townsend. That's what we want. And so we didn't go about this haphazardly. We tried to keep the community in mind as we were doing our attempted sale. And I hope you all respect that, because like I said, we've been 2 years in this process now, over 2 years.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Mayor?
Just two more quick questions. So the intent is to put an RV park on this parcel, and you're going to follow the RV regulations. You mentioned something about a buffer zone, a green buffer that you were going to maintain.
We're going to try to keep the existing, if you look at page, the tree line there, we're going to have as much buffer as we want. We know the town wants that. We know the RV resort guests themselves like that. So we have not gotten into the engineering yet around how much space, but we're going for an experience that is not, let's say, pack them in there style. As Mr. Kelly did mention, we are from a very small town where there's a lot of money and eyeballs and people trying to develop. Our town is, we had one stoplight for about, up until about 10 years ago. A second one, which is smaller than the light here in town, with some of, on the other side of the mountains, to the Smokies and the Blue Ridge Parkway. So we understand the value of trying to make sure that what goes in is appropriate for the area.
So you're trying to tell us you're going to keep these trees?
That the best as we can, and we don't have any intent not to. It's an asset to the property.
And the other thing I see in the ordinance is no buildings or storage sheds are permitted on the RV campsite.
Yeah, we, again, we are starting to study that. We have, again, with the existing buildings, we have, feel like those are good complementary uses in order to be able to offer an experience that we need to, but we'll be very focused on the safety and the security and maintenance of that property. That's all my questions.
Okay. I did take an opportunity, along with Mike, and we checked with neighbors all the way around to see if there was any conflict of interest anywhere or any dissension anywhere. None, not even with the heritage. With anything else, complies with everything. And I want to appreciate you very much, Mr. Stewart. You did your homework, you checked the boxes. You come in here with a plan that at least satisfies the questions that one might have. Eric, did you have a question you need to ask? Pat, did you have another one?
The only question it's not a question, but he's only asking for the rezone.
That's right.
When he comes back with a plan, I'm sure we'll browbeat you with questions. Okay, so be ready.
This is only a recommendation of the city council. Do I have a motion that we accept this and make a motion to the city council to accept changing from B1 to B3? So move.
I'll second that. I'll second it.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll look forward to seeing your plans.
Thank you very much.
Doug, would you sit up here and tell Pat? Oh, there you go.
Mr. Vice Chair, let me just clarify next steps then. So the draft ordinance will be prepared and presented with the recommendation of the Planning Commission to the City Council.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll capture that.
Thank you very much. Mike?
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair. Appreciate you conducting the meeting up to this point. Let's see. Looks like we're on new item B, the re-subdivision of 765, 7653, and 7659 Lamar Alexander Parkway. This is an Olin request. I believe we have some representatives here that spoke to us last week. We do have a survey of the subdivision that has been proposed to us. If you'd like to go ahead and just give us another introduction, and then we can have the Kim get over the particulars as well.
Great. So I believe you have in front of you the survey that Mr. Cantrell here put up for us. So we're looking to re-subdivide what was once 3 separate sections into those 3 now. It's currently 1. So we have 3 buildings and 3 separate pieces of property on each. Each property would have its own building to be more in line with the surrounding spaces. And also, if you, Houston did send a email in, he was able to be here tonight. Part of this reason would be to insurance, as we have kind of 3 different uses there. That would really help with that as well. And just kind of being in line with what is existing in properties around town already.
And you should all have a hard copy of that email as well.
Yes, yeah, we did receive those hard copies. Thank you. Kim, in reviewing this, did you see any details that maybe meet outside of our requirements?
Well, no. Basically, the request is that they want to take a 1.7 acre, 1.27 acre parcel and divide up into 3. One being 0.38, one being 0.91, one being 0.95. So those are the proportions for each of those. With the D1 zoning, there are no minimum of sizes. The minimum yard requirements are side 10, rear 25 feet, and the height is 25 feet. And Houston has indicated why they want to, what their intents are. Basically, that they want to split it up into 3, as you mentioned, for the uses. My only issue is this, is that for one of the sites, I want to be clear what the rear setback is, because it wasn't clear to me immediately what that backyard rear.
The rear line.
Exactly. There you go.
And it actually goes out into the river, and I think I showed that on the latest.
No, I'm talking about this.
Oh, stop, you sure.
This one. This one, you see the?
Yeah, the steps,
Yes, is that 25 feet?
that would not be 25 feet, so I would have to shift it
Exactly.
back into the
There you go.
driveway for
There you go.
you.
So
To
that's-
meet that.
Exactly. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is also,
So can you clarify exactly what you're talking about so we can understand?
Talking about that blue line?
It's L19, line 19.
So the building is called frame building, the back side of that building is not far enough away from the
yes, exactly.
proposed
That was my
property.
question.
So that property line needs to move.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. All right. So then the other thing is that so pending that correction, I think we're fine with the setbacks. And the second thing is that it has a shared driveway.
Right.
And so one thing is, I wanted to know if there's only one driveway onto 331 or there's a second one planned?
There's two.
There's
existing.
two.
There's two.
Okay, good.
And the shared driveway would only be for the lot in the back, which is lot number 2.
Okay, all right. And so therefore, if there is, even though it's the same owner and it's a shared driveway, we just simply want to ask you to record an easement for the shared driveway with, just by the fact that it's, it's still the one property owner.
And we could do that at the same time. I'll record the plat, and then I can put instrument number on both documents.
And then all else will happen when we do this, have the site plan. So given what I've reviewed, I think I recommend that it be approved or dividing pending the setback for lot number 1.
Okay. All right, we have a recommendation from our planner to go ahead and approve this, this re-subdivision, pending the setback on lot 1, reflected is a 25-foot
So
setback.
you have to move that, and then we're going to put it through.
Lot 1, I believe, is,
Lot
lot 1,
Lot 2.
lot 1 is the one.
Lot 1, yes. On this drawing, lot 1.
Okay.
And recording of the joint easement.
And then, yeah, request for the recording of the easement on the driveway.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I'd entertain a motion to accept the recommendation.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Since all this is in the flood zone, is there any structural changes to any of these buildings that's going to occur when you do this? Okay, just want to make that clear.
Very good. Are there any other questions?
Make a move, we said.
Okay.
Under these stipulations.
With the 25-foot setback on lot 1 and the request for the easement on the shared driveway. So I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, Eric, second. I have a motion, second. Any further questions or discussion? Yes, sir.
Being here in the audience and listening to this, I'm adjacent property owner. Does that affect me in any way?
No, it doesn't. The lots, the outside dimensions of the lots remain the same.
Okay, no driveways or anything?
No, 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 no at all. All right, have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Jim. That brings us to new item C, B1 zoning, 7511 Old Highway 73 acre. Do we have a representative for the acre rezoning or B1 zoning request for 7511 Old Highway 73? All right. It looks like we don't have a representative here to introduce this for us. However, this is an item that we've been dealing with and trying to come to an understanding of what can be permitted on this B1 zone. Mr. Aker has proposed that if we'd like to put a business on that lot. He brought a site plan to us that we reviewed at the last meeting. Currently looking for my minutes. had them. We had some things on his site plan that we requested be addressed and brought back to this October meeting. So, just to go over what was in the minutes here. Okay, there was some discussion. The board stated the setback distance from the river would need to be determined. The septic portion of the site plan would need to be stamped by the health department. A lighting plan would need to be included. And signage for the business would need to be addressed, as well as a drainage plan to show that post-drainage would not be worse than pre-construction. I came with the resubmission of the site plan that Mr. Aker brought in last week. Have these points been addressed?
No, they've not been addressed. And in addition to that, there's some further questions I would have on the application.
Could I ask you just to use the microphone or a little closer to the mic? Make sure everybody hears.
Those have not been addressed in my review of his documents submitted. And I have some extra questions given the documents that he presented. I wanted to know if there was going to be any restrooms in the proposed structure. It didn't seem to indicate that because there is a drain line going from the septic to the building.
Okay.
So the question is, why that? And then there's also, we have no indication of if there's going to be any office space in the structure, being that it says it's going to be an office building for commercial purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, we are wanting to know if the RV is what he intends to use as his office, and which then would then be unacceptable. Which then would be unacceptable
Mm-hmm.
as a office space. And then also, persons cannot reside in an RV if the RV is meant as a site for storage. So therefore, if he's going to store it there, he can't use it, he can't occupy it. And then also, there's no lighting plan in terms of location, height, wattage, orientation, etc. And we also do not see things that he claims to have addressed. He hasn't shown proof that he's addressed them. So also, most things like anything from Blount County, the environmental review have not been done. And where he has also made not applicable, we need to know the explanation of why those things are not applicable, rather than just simply saying that they're not applicable. Sort of thing. And then on the plat, there are a couple of mentions of a motorhome, and the motorhome being connected to a septic tank. And there need not be any connections. That would imply that it's been an active, occupied motorhome, for which that can only happen in an RV camper. So those are some of the issues. So my recommendation, given what questions I have, as they keep going on and on, is that the submission remains insufficient for the rendering of any decision whatsoever.
Okay. All right, comments?
I've got a whole series of questions if you want me to go first.
Sure.
First of all, it's not clear to me if this is an accessory building, a storage building, a business building, or something else. If it's a storage building or a sales building for four-wheeled vehicles, it has to be zone B3 according to zoning. Okay? I can't see where that's being done. To me, it looks like it's a carport or a garage to store its RV in. And throw up the garage doors and have a nice patio. But regardless, we owe it to the citizens of Townsend to enforce the FEMA floodplain rules so we can continue our flood insurance eligibility. And those rules, once again, I've studied rules. There's a very clear statement at the very beginning of this that says all new construction and substantially improvements of non-residential structures within zone A1 on a community's plan have the lowest floor, including basement, elevated to or above the base flood level. I don't see any evidence that he's done that. And whether that floor is made out of gravel, dirt, wood, tile, doesn't matter. It's still the floor. So to me, he hasn't taken into the FEMA requirements on his site plan.
And just, not to interrupt, but I also noted that there was not an elevation diagram submitted with this resubmittal of the site plan. So in addition to the other things, I think an elevation is required, should be required, and that elevation should show the FEMA floodplain.
Last time, there was a lot of discussion about the fact that the building was going to have gravel floor, and therefore it didn't have to be elevated. I went back to the records, and it's clear it has to. So we have to make sure he understands that. The second thing is, if it's a building for a business, it has to have ADA compliant parking spot. We require at least one spot per 25 spaces. It has to be ADA compliant. I see no evidence that that's on the site plan. Then you get into the things that he mentioned. We've got restroom facilities. They have to meet the standards, and they're not even mentioned in there. And then it's more complicated because he gave us two site plans. He gave us one with no building and one with the building. And I don't understand that.
Well, that's one of the requirements of the site plan is the pre-construction buildings that are on the location and then post-construction, so that's.
Okay,
first
so
of
the one that shows the driveway
Yeah,
and
with no
the
building.
gravel pad where you park an RV is the pre-construction?
Yes, pre-construction of the building.
I'm not, okay. I'm dubious, Mike.
Yeah, the site plan checklist, so location of existing and proposed structures, so I think that he probably did that on two overlays, existing structures, there's none, and then he has a second sheet for the proposed. So. All right.
You don't need one, Mike, you need to show the elevation
Yes,
of the existing and then proposed.
yes, it's true.
May I comment on that, Pat? Just, if you don't mind. Pat made a comment that the non-residential structure elevation is required, and he is partially correct, but there's another piece to that. There's number 2, which says that anything that you build there has to be floodproof. So if you don't meet the elevation requirement, which in this case he did not, then whatever structure he builds there has to be floodproof.
Mhm.
So he can build it below the FEMA regulations if he wants. If he does that, then he's got to provide us with engineering documents that state this building has been designed and constructed to be a floodproof structure.
And just so you know, Mike, floodproof is very definitive what it means.
Yeah, there's floodgates, there's things that, like if a tree blows down the river and it hits the bank, it's got to be able to divert without causing any kind of damage. There's a lot of stuff with the floodproof.
Including hydraulic studies on the structure itself, not wind studies, hydraulic studies. It's
Yeah,
very complicated.
It doesn't, yeah, there's some hydrostatic engineering that's way above my skill set for sure, but just adding to what Pat said, if he doesn't meet the FEMA elevation requirement, he can build it wherever he wants, but if he doesn't meet that requirement, then he's got to have another step where it has to be floodproof.
Okay, understood, thank you.
There's some hydrostatic engineering that's way above my skill set for sure, but just adding to what Pat said, if he doesn't meet the FEMA elevation requirement, he can build it wherever he wants, but if he doesn't meet that requirement, then he's got to have another step where it has to be floodproof.
Okay, understood, thank you, Doug.
Yes.
Doug, I noticed on the way back from the park today, there's a motor coach on that lot this afternoon. There's a difference between, I'm sure, driving onto your own lot, your car, or your motor coach, or whatever, but if it's left there for a period of time, it would be whoever would would be in violation of the ordinance at some point, what would our procedure be to?
I'm gonna have to refer to Tim for that one, my code enforcement officer. I just threw him under the mud, coach, I think.
When is it a violation? When does it become a violation?
As soon as it's parked there,
Okay.
without a residential structure on the lot, you cannot park a RV, motorhome, anything.
So what's the trigger pull to notify the owner of the motor coach or the owner of the, is it
Well,
the
that
owner of the motor coach or the property? Who's in violation?
They are,
It's the
they
same,
are
I
both,
think.
it's the same person.
Well, it might not be.
It is.
Okay.
And he has already been notified that you cannot do that. He's already been presented with the paperwork, the city codes saying that you cannot do that.
Well, I drove by there today and I just sort of scratched my head thinking, don't we have this on the agenda tonight? And why is that motor coach sitting there now? Because we hadn't talked about it, so just wanted to ask the question and see what we do next.
He is aware that putting that motor coach there is against city code and that it could result in a fine. And has been for several months.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim regarding the motor coach location? Mayor, did you have some comments?
Well, I just, I took note of the city planner's comment, and I think Commissioner Jenkins picked up on this as well. If we're giving him advice about building a building, and he's already gone to some expense already on preparing and thinking about a building, might be helpful if we clarify that this is a building for storing, not for occupying the motor coach. Because it would seem like, and I think this is the point city planner is making, you can verify with me, that the exceptions, I mean, there's a general prohibition of doing what he wants to do, and that's park his motor coach and camp on it. And that's in 8410. But there are some exceptions. And there are exceptions for storing or placing buildings in number A that talks a lot about storing and placing structures, including tents. You can even put a tent on there. But if you're going to occupy that tent, you have to get a special permit from the building inspector up to 7 days. You can occupy it. Exception number B is about residences, and again, it's about parking and storing, not about occupying. Exception C is about occupying, but it says if it's a mobile home, it's permitted in a mobile home park. Exception D is about occupying. It says trailers, travel trailers, motorhomes, campers, or recreational vehicles can be occupied in campgrounds. Number E is about parking and storing. You can park and store a commercial vehicle. And exception number F looks like it's also about temporary buildings on a construction site. So I want to give good guidance to Mr. Aker. And if he's, the city planner noted, he's got drawings of a septic and, I don't imagine you put a septic on there unless you're planning to occupy that. And so if he's building a building to run as an office or RV or something like that, that's one thing. But if he's planning to use the motorhome for his office or something, it's not clear what it is. But he's putting a lot of time and effort into this, and if there's some fundamental challenges, then we probably ought to let him know that it looks like what he's proposing is a place to be able to store this, not necessarily to occupy. Am I right?
Well, I believe you're somewhat mostly right. And I'm looking at this on the merits of what Mr. Aker brought into us, and the narrative's changed a little bit from the onset. But the narrative that I understand right now is that he's proposing to put a rental business or some type of a business in this metal building, which is going to serve a dual purpose of being subordinately and insularly tied to the storage of his RV unit. So I would think and assume that this building being used for business, it would have to have some office area in it, probably have some restroom area in it, probably have meet ADA compliance, have the other things that normal businesses would have, exterior lighting, signage, parking areas appropriate for the customer base that he's drawing in. And the ancillary purpose is for just the storage of his RV. So in the storage of the RV, I do question, why do we have a tight line going to the septic to the RV? Why don't we have, the office spaces delineated and these other things that are normally associated with business structures, put in here? So there are questions that still need to be answered. But I take Mr. Aker at his word. He wants to create a business here. And that's the approach as a planning commission that we need to look at. Is the building appropriate? Does it meet our requirements? And if so, then he can build a building and occupy it and run his business. However, he's been told many times that at no time is he to occupy the RV, which is stored within the building. Which is interesting too, because campers and recreational vehicles may be stored or parked on a residential lot. And in the writing of that, it's indicated that it's on the exterior of the residential building that it's going to be parked outside. And I don't see anything in here that prohibits him from storing an RV, an airplane, a motorboat inside of another building that's an ancillary purpose to his main purpose of operating and maintaining a business. So in that regard, we have to look at it, the merits of, does he have this building designed and drawn out to function in the way that he proposes? Does it meet all the requirements as far as the safety and the permits and all the checklists of the lighting plan, the drainage plan, the signage and everything else? If he meets those things, then he's permitted to operate a business and build this business, in my view, in the city of Townsend. So there are these questions that need to be answered. There's deficiencies still on the site plan that were requested at the previous meeting, which you'll still need to go ahead and satisfy those. And based on the merits of the complete site plan that he brings in, then we will evaluate it through our checklist and we'll give an action based on that. So, but at this time, I see that it's an incomplete.
Well, I got one question.
Yes,
I think we got to clarify something. If he wants to build a wholesale business, a storage yard, a warehouse, or if he wants to sell auto, boat sales, and other motorcycle and four-wheel drive sales, this piece of property has to be zoned B3, and it's not. So yes, the checklist you might satisfy the checklist, but if he's going to have one of those types of buildings, it's supposed to be in B3.
I agree.
Why wouldn't it be a retail business? He's renting these, is he storing these things or is he renting them out?
He's wanting to rent golf carts,
Why didn't have a
two
retail?
types of golf carts, he wants to rent them, as far as that's what he said.
Okay.
Well, read B3, read 1C,
Page number?
page 86, and tell me if what he's proposed doesn't meet that.
Selling. In B3, 1C, auto, including RVs and boat sales, facilities and repair, and motorcycle sales. Versus B1A, stores and shops conducting retail business.
Right. I wasn't involved in writing this, but it seems like it's two different things.
But is he selling them or is he renting?
He said both.
He said both.
Both.
Sale and or rent. I'll get one or two and put them out front. And so I'm not sure exactly what his intent on either the selling or the renting. If it were to be, I do agree with you in the interpretation. If he were to engage in sales, then a rezoning request would need to be satisfied prior to opening a sales business on the lot.
So I think that further complicates the situation.
Medium. B3 also says, intent of this district is to provide for a broad array of medium to large scale business activities, more intensive in nature. So, I don't know, I think it's debatable.
The bottom line is, whatever he's proposing is not reflected in his drawings and what he just put down on paper. So, if he's going to do a business, then he should show us a building, parking spaces, an office, everything that we would expect on a site plan for a business. All of which he has not shown any indication of what he plans to put down on paper for us to consider. So that's why I keep saying that until he gives us the information that we need, we're going to keep tossing him back. And I don't know how many times we're going to tolerate him coming back and forth without giving us concrete things to decide, given what he expects that he wants to do.
When did we receive the hard copies for this revision in our office, Caleb?
October 4th.
On October 4th? So how many days is that prior to the meeting? 6 days prior. So I want to be able to help Mr. Aker realize his dream of opening a business here in town. However, submissions need to be made to the office 10 days prior for our consideration. And then the specific things that we requested be included at the previous meeting on the site plan need to be included. Sounds like we have even more questions that have come up. And if it's okay, I'd like it, Kim, if you could jot all those down in one concise.
Yes,
format.
I'll follow up with you. I have
Yeah.
taken a few notes of the specific, but I'll follow up with you.
And we'll be sure to share this with Mr. Akers so he can get his plan done and have it presented right to where we can actually take action on it.
So between the minutes, my notes, and your, we have a call, we'll figure out what to do. But my issue is also is that it takes, I have a lot of other clients, and it takes a lot of time to review these things. And I don't want to have to keep going back and back and back. And so that's another thing. It's I would say it's almost an abuse of our
Of the resources.
Jared has just done. Here's what we're expecting when you have this completed, you bring it.
Yeah.
Don't bring it until every box is checked.
Yes, and all non-applicables are also explained.
And everything needs to be explained on the site plan, because that is the record that we retain here at City Hall. So 20 years from now, if someone has a question and says, why wasn't there a lighting plan, a landscaping plan, that needs to be explained on the site plan submitted in notes. So all these things need to be addressed. And I believe that Kim recommended that based on the merits of the site plan, that he would not recommend that we approve that.
Yeah, even consider it.
Even consider it.
Yes, because it's insufficient. It's insufficient.
Okay. I wonder if we should take official action on that. We have specific remedies and recommendations that we've already proposed for him to bring this site plan into accordance to be accepted.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, usually the city planner will look at the site plan before it's proposed to be on the agenda. So it has to be in 10 days in advance. In addition, city planner has to say that it's met all the requirements on the site plan in order for us to take action. So it shouldn't even appear on the agenda unless it meets those two things, 10 days in advance and a complete site plan.
Which, this time we missed both on both of those, so we, but I want to be as helpful as we can
I want to be
to
helpful.
get the information out to make this thing come through. So at this time, do we need to take action to deny the request? Let me see how the agenda is. B1 zoning, it doesn't even say site plan review or request for site plan review.
Mike, I think since it wasn't received in the timeframe,
Yeah.
we don't have
We
to
just
take
need it
action.
inactionable.
Yes.
Yeah, probably the best on that, since we didn't receive it on time and it is incomplete, it is inactionable. So I don't think there's a need to take official action to deny it, since it was not submitted appropriately to begin with. Okay, any other questions or discussing regarding new business item C? All right. We'll move on to new business item D, B3 workshop update, overlays and transition zones, windshield survey, etc. Kim, would you like to go ahead and give us some overview on the workshop and where we're going from here?
Yeah, basically, we had a workshop, I don't recall the dates, but we discussed the need to consider having a B3 designation of B3 zone actualized above and beyond what the zone regulations allow. And that then proceeded to us discussing whether the east end of the, past the traffic lights would be a suitable zone to have B3 actualized. And the couple of ways in which we discussed it was either via an overlay of some sort or a transition zone of some sort. So that we are basically not suggesting that it simply be a zone for which things are allowed in, but that we will consider the pre-existing uses and make them as such, and then any other additions to the stockpile of B3 uses will come before review, where of course we would have to have the owner petition it to review it and then it be added on. But the idea being is that there is already, there seems to be organic growth already there. It's just that we do not have it being a formalized, regularized use in that area of town. So the idea is to basically make sure that we can have our pre-existing non-conforming uses become conforming with the new designation that will be created, given the pre-existing and organic growth that's been happening in that part of town. So then, the next thing was then to figure out where we would want to put that, there or anywhere else, so that we're not just concentrating on one particular area, but in the totality of the city, where it would be advisable to consider a B3 designation, basically. So the next thing that we discussed was you were going to do a rudimentary windshield survey, and then thereupon we'll do a more exhaustive one where I will try to recruit some students from UT or some other additional labor to make sure that we can have a good account that confirms not only what the zoning is, but what actually uses are for what is happening. Whether it, let's say zone that is vacant, let's say it's zone B1, but it has B3 use happening on that particular site. So that we can have not just a selective study, but a comprehensive study.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
And I believe that we're going to schedule another workshop in the future as well. We've received the zoning map of the city that we're going to do the windshield survey with very soon. Mayor, is there anything that you'd like to add about the workshop and what was discussed?
Well, I think it was a really good workshop. Talked about this for about 2 hours. I think where we landed on this is really going to be useful in terms of our community plan overall. So this larger survey, I think, will inform the community plan to be able to give us some information. So as we adjust zoning and we look at zone overlays, to be able to sort of organize the city for the future, this information could be very useful. So I think after we talked about it, we kept coming back around to that point. So I'm really pleased that this work is going to commence, and I think it will fold into the community plan.
Yeah, so to be more specific, after Mike has done that rudimentary one, I will go ahead and number each lot. And then when we do the extensive survey, we will indicate what the use is, and then have something that says that it's the actual use or it's non-conforming use or what have you for each of the properties, so that we have a running tally of each parcel, number from 1 to whatever. With that.
I think this is going to be helpful. If you drive around town and you look at things, what we see as vacant lots now are zoned certain ways. what we see as houses are existing uses, but they're in, different zoning types, so it's important for us to understand how our property is being used now, because when we look at it for the future, there's already things that exist, and so we've got to be able to take that into account. And I think this is a good start on doing that. So.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how many undeveloped residential lots we have in town and compared with the business lots as well. And if we could figure out a way to get total acreage as well, to understand what subdivision in the future might be like if those were subdivided up. Okay, is there any questions or comments regarding the workshop? Anyone else like to make? All right, thank you. Moving on to item E. This is a 321 corridor management plan update. We received an email with the TDOT 321 corridor management plan update just a couple days ago. I opened it. I was surprised that it's huge. It's like 140 something pages. So I glanced at it very quickly in the time that I had. I haven't had a chance to read it in its entirety. Kim, could you tell us a little bit about what this management plan update is entailing and what they request of us?
Well, I will say, I'm sorry, Dave, sorry. My mind went to the television. I've also started reading it myself, but basically, in their extreme, the idea is not to have 321 become anything close to what might happen or is happening, let's say, in Kensington, to restrict the access onto 321. So that's number one. Number two is, I suggest that we make it part of the CPAC process, where there will be a chapter on Townsend having a corridor management plan. That would, let's say, for example, might be an issue with a number of properties sharing a common sub-driveway to enter onto the main highway. So that's one particular example of that. But the whole import of the whole thing is that once that is devised, and I think we'll also need to work with some consultant engineers, TDOT will enforce what we come up with. So that's the police power that you would have above and beyond yourselves. So Troy at TDOT has asked me to read it through extensively. I would want to do it with you, and I also suggest that we include Commissioner Hedrick in that discussion as well, to see how that, and also maybe you as well, because you're the one who brought it up, and Red was the one who brought it up.
Commissioner Red brought this up.
So maybe have like a subcommittee to study it extensively and then figure out what that would entail in terms of effort and also in terms of cost. But I think that I highly recommend that it be done for the city.
All right, any questions for Kim regarding the corridor study?
Mike, I want to reinforce, I got to page 12. But I would like to be included in that.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, I keep forgetting he's an engineer, right?
Yep.
You betcha.
Yep. Which is, it's a really good idea. Alcoa Highway is an example of a large road where traffic moves too quickly and there's far too many driveways coming and going. And, I could see us having to look at the way we want our city set up in the future so we can mitigate that kind of stop and go traffic and make it a safer place. So, yes, we will assemble a team of those interested and willing, and we'll read through the document. And then with your direction, of course, we'll go ahead and see what options there are that we can put in place.
And I think one more thing to also consider is that I would strongly suggest you also have some traffic calming measures on the road as well. Because right now, I think too many people speed on it, and they're not really aware that there's a 45 speed limit. And of course, on the other end, it can make a lot of money for Townsend in terms of tickets. It's also not the safest thing that you want to do.
And I believe we also need to have the chief or our police department involved with this. I believe they
Exactly,
completed
yes.
a traffic study recently, and the findings are quite interesting. It does seem as though we do need to reduce the speed that people are traveling on the highway, so this plan could be incorporated into that effect. All right, any other questions on the corridor study? All right.
Stuck with me. Hello. So we're having an open house and we've sent out postcards. Gayla, have they all been sent out yet or we're still working on that?
We still have a few left to go to businesses, but the guys did get it all residents.
I guess they probably didn't get it in our place. And CCR maybe because of the date or something, because I didn't.
So they may not have it there.
Yeah, so we can let you know if you need to, or I can hand it over.
Okay.
But anyway, so we've sent postcards to all of the residents. Luckily, Gayla had a letter going out at the same time, so we didn't have to even send any postcards. So it worked out. It wasn't the original plan, but Plan B worked out better than Plan A.
So the open house is, the
It's
dates?
Friday, October 18th, from 4:30 to 6:30. It's going to be sort of a drop-in type of thing, not a formal presentation.
Okay.
And there's going to be a lot of, we want input from the community, so it's basically about gathering the input from the community. So that's what's going on there. I think basically what we said, we're going to focus on definitions and gathering opinions. And one thing that keeps coming up is that we're missing the demographic of the younger people, 18 to 28. So we're going to try to find a way to reach out to those people. That's probably about what we, I mean, that's a lot going on for that open house, so that will have a lot more.
So the open house on October the 18th, 4:30 to 6:30 here.
I'm sorry, at Heritage Center.
Oh, at the Heritage Center.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, Heritage Center. And when is the next regularly scheduled meeting for CPAC, just so we can have folks know that, you know? Is
I
it-
believe it's next Tuesday.
It's next
Yes,
Tuesday?
thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
October
15th.
October 15th. and
5
that-
o'clock.
5 o'clock, and that will be here.
Right here.
And that's the next scheduled meeting for the CPAC group to meet and proceed. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, I would also just mention that there's planning for some focus groups. And so it's envisioned that there might be a focus group of the Planning Commission and City Council. Invitations might go out, this is hot off the press, for Saturday from 11 to 12 on October the 19th. So stand by and look for an invitation to that focus group.
Where will they see that?
They'll get it in their email.
Oh, the people that will be in the focus group.
Yeah, be invited to the focus group.
Will the FC group be involved in that focus group?
I think SE Group is a facilitator for a number of these focus groups.
Yeah, I think they're running everything,
Okay.
and so, I guess this was mentioned to me, I don't have a whole lot of information. She said that we were going to try to do it, but it ended up being better on Saturday, and that's where it got left. But so would the community want to be part of that? So how will they know about it?
I think on the focus groups, I think they're going to make that information available. My guess is, I mean, they're trying to get different perspectives from different groups, is my understanding, but they're still open to anybody who wants to visit, but they're just sort of special outreach.
What's the time again for that, please?
Saturday, the 19th, 11 to 12.
And that will be here?
We'll clarify on that when the invitation comes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't have enough information on this.
Yeah, myself, and it's going to be a bit of a problem. Number one, to get anybody other than myself, even I will not be able to come at that specific time. I'll be able to come, as I told, either after, sometime after 2 o'clock.
Okay.
That's number one. And number two, I don't know how we're going to fit in, how many focus groups in that 1 hour? Another thing I wasn't clear about.
I think there's a whole schedule for these groups, so we'll get that information.
Yeah, this is very new information, so it really has a discussion,
It's
so.
another additional outreach.
Okay.
So we're talking about multiple.
I guess, can we get that on the website?
Yeah,
Facebook
we'll put it up on the website.
Okay.
All right. Are there any more questions on the Townsend CPAC update? Thank you, Christine, appreciate that. Moving on to item 6, old business. We have no items under old business, brings us to item 7, other business. Item A, local administrative items. Do we have anything to Ken under local administrative items? No. Status reports, anything that we need to? No? All right. Looks like we made it through the whole entire meeting to item number 8.
I'd like to suggest that we now allow public comment now, since they've heard everything we talked about, even though it's not on the agenda.
Well, let's discuss that outside of the meeting.
Okay. I'd just like to hear what people think. And after they've heard us talk about the buildings and the property, it would just be nice to hear what they've got to say. I guess I'll have to go outside and bend my ear. It seemed like it'd be a good opportunity to take public input.
Mr. Chairman, before you arrived, I did make a suggestion that the Planning Commission would take a look at other opportunities to have public input. So we're not now at the beginning of the agenda, but folks have raised to me that other planning commissions do it differently. So we decided that we would take a look at that, and look at other best practices, and maybe put that on as a workshop topic.
Okay.
To talk about, how to organize public input at the planning commission.
All right. I'm open to discussing that possibility. But this time we'll stick with the regular agenda that we started with. Are there any other comments from the Board of Commissioners? All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Make a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Opposed?
Got one that wants to stay.
I want to hear from the people.